Leon is suddenly awake by the abrupt noise of the door opening. The light hit his open eyes in surprise and he closed them again, sighing slightly at the inconvenience. Mr. Kennedy, it's time. The neutral voice of one of the guards hit Leon in the head like a brick. The day had come faster than the bond he would have liked. He couldn't sleep very well at night. Nightmares. Both nightmares about everything happened in Raccoon and about Claire and Sherry. In a way, he even thanked that soldier for waking him up, but he was dreaming that he had failed to get the vaccine. Without anything, he stands up, blinks a few times, and yawns for a few moments, before looking at the guard with an arched eyebrow in doubt. Is the training going to start like this, straight up, though? He asked, looking at the guard, who made them turn into motion in his head. Leon's surprise, the other man entered the room, walking briskly towards him. The blond man was confused and a little intimidated. It didn't take a genius to realize that something was wrong, or that he had done something wrong, which didn't make much sense. I can't even go to the bathroom. He was abruptly interrupted as he received a strong punch to the stomach, a blow off him off guard. Leon gasped and fell and kneeled to the ground, with one hand on his stricken stomach. Before he could even recover, the man who had entered grabbed him by the neck and forced him to face him. Don't speak unless you get permission. Get up, the man ordered, letting go of Leon with some force, and the blond man grunted slightly, both in pain and anger. Ah, how wonderful. After a few moments he stood up, with still a sore stomach, and despite the certain hesitation he had felt deep inside, he faced the guard with cold eyes. To his slight misfortune, the guard seemed to not care much. Follow me, and watch your step, the guard in front of the door said, not wanting to respond, already turning around. Leon resisted the urge to sigh, and soon began to follow the guard. His head ached from the poor night's sleep. He felt tired. He had no idea how many days had passed since he had been taken to that place, but he knew that it only had been a few, no more than 4 at most. An extremely short time after rest after Raccoon, not physically, of course, but mentally. The corridors they followed were long, wide, with several paths leading towards the wards that Leon had yet to see. To his chagrin, the place reminded him of Umbrella's underground laboratory. They walked for some time, until they reached a large area. Still inside the base, the area was guarded by several guards, all wearing heavy military gear, military rifles, ballistic vests, and they all looked like were ready for war. After one of the guards in front of him showed a badge, stated that there were reasons they were going outside, he gestured for Leon to enter the elevator. Still silent, Leon did so, and he soon arched his eyebrows in surprise to see that none of the guards had entered the elevator with him. But before he could even ask, the guard pressed one of the buttons, and the doors closed. Leon blinked a few times, still confused, but just as the elevator began to move sideways, the compartment came out of the wall with something that looked like an audio device. Looking at the elevator with analytical eyes, Leon picked up the device. The elevator had no glass, which was a complete dark gray, and didn't even seem to have cameras, although the blonde suspected that these were also hidden. Examining the device in hand, he closes his eyes slightly. An earpiece. He didn't like that, but after sighing softly, he put the earpiece in his ear. Mr. Kennedy, William's neutral voice greeted him, and Leon clicked his tongue in disgust upon hearing it. Aren't you going to answer to me? Liam asked after Leon was silent for some time. Oh, I'm allowed to speak now? He returned half bitterly. Your job will require extreme discipline from you. It is essential to your skills of the accomplishment of the missions. William replied to his neutral tone that was already becoming common for the young man, who just took a deep breath. Ah, Mr. Kennedy, I'll have to empathize the discipline issue very strongly. This is no way to talk to your superior. This attitude of yours must go. Otherwise, punishment will be a part of your daily life. And I assure you, you won't want that, William said so neutrally that it seemed like he didn't care. But Leon could feel it. His skin tingled. There was a part of certain undertone of the minutes behind the neutrality. Well, he would have to be indeed working with William for now, so like it or not, he would have to treat him with proper respect. The sooner he gets out of that, the better it will be for everyone. Yes, sir, he replied, feeling the elevator stop moving. It was a little strange that the doors still remained closed. Good, I'm glad you now understand. Now I hope you had a good rest, William said. As soon as he finished his speech, the doors opened. Leon stepped slowly out of the elevator, his eyes scanning only the corridor there, long gray but well lit. His footsteps echoed throughout the place, and the fact that he had been hearing nothing but his own footsteps made a chill run down his spine. As I mentioned in our meeting previously, this job is not for everyone. Only the strongest of the strongest will survive. There is no such thing as luck here, William said as Leon moved forward. And after a few moments of walking down that corridor, what seemed to have no end, he had finally come up to stairs that lead to an iron door. We have recruited people who looked promising, spent millions to erase them from the outside world, only for them to turn out and to be a disappointment at the end. And that is why before the actual training, we must know if you have the basic necessary for this job. The door opened as soon as Leon approached, causing the young man to pause for a few moments, until he stepped through the door. Blinking a few times, because of the glare from the sun that bothered his eyes, he soon looked around. He couldn't help but be surprised to see that he was in a dense forest. The trees were tall, the weather was slightly cool. In the background he could see what appeared to be a hilltop, but it was far away for him to know for sure. In the trees, marked with the red paint in front of you, is a small pouch with glass vial with a greenish liquid inside. A1, take it, William said, and Leon immediately focused on his eyes on said tree. Doing this was instructed immediately afterwards. Think of it as a little test. If you pass, you'll get necessary basics that this job requires. And then later today, the beginning of your training, all you have to do is find the other vitals, one purple in the color of the markings 2B, and the other one in red color with the marking C2, and after that, you will have to take it to the research lab to become accessible in 7 hours, William said, after placing the pouch in his waist. Leon blinked a few times. Rather an easy test. Surely there was something behind it. It just can't be, can it? Sir? Leon said suspiciously. No, it can't. It would be easy, wouldn't it? There are only 3 vials in total for the 15 people participating. Leon slightly widened his eyes. Are there other people around here? Yes, Mr. Kennedy. Basically, this is a race to see who's the most skilled to get all 3 vials, William replied. Good luck. No, wait! Leon exclaimed. However, William did not respond, and he could no longer hear anything. Damn it, he complained. If there were only 3 vials, and that he was already started with 1, it would meant he would have to steal the other participants' vitals. What the fuck kind of test was that? What would happen if he didn't get all 3 jars? Would he fail? Then what? Would he be kicked out of there? What about his deal? What about Claire and Sherry? Damn it. Leon, without realizing it, began to breathe harder as those thoughts flooded his mind. He closed his eyes tightly and clenched his fists. The poor night's sleep and his empty stomach were not helping the matters. Taking a deep breath, he began to re-regulate his breathing, feeling fluttery, heart slowing calmly down. Looking around, the blond man ran his head through his hair in nervousness. Where would he go now? How would he be able to find the other vitals? And what would he do if he finds someone else who... He shook his head. He would have to think about these things when the time came. There was no reason for him to feel nervous and dwell on it. Standing there in the middle of nowhere, looking up, he focused on his eyes on the blue, what appeared to be atop of a hill. Well, a high place was certainly a start. More visibility of the area, and with slow steps, he began to walk. With each step he took, the more apprehensive he became. The forest was dense and silent, and again he found himself enveloped from the sound of his own footsteps and uneasy breathing. There didn't seem to be any sign of infected out there. but no matter what, he would feel safer with a weapon, even if it was just a knife. Leon sighed. The hill he had seen was further away than expected. For many minutes of walking, he had not yet arrived yet. However, the forest was beginning to change. Ahead, he could see a small lake. It was shallow and had more like a huge puddle on the ground than the lake itself. At the top of the hill, a small cliff that was close to the lake. If someone fell from there, they would certainly not come out unharmed. Leon went around the large puddle and water and tried to climb up the small hill. As soon as he reached the top, he ran his eyes over the surrounding area. Despite the seas of trees around him, Leon could see two places of interest, and one that might be some use. A few meters ahead was a small observation tower. It looked empty and destroyed, which didn't give him much of cover, but there might be something there because of the smoke that emanated. A few hundred meters to the side, he looked like a house with some kind of building, also destroyed, so no one could tell exactly. And a few distance far away, almost too far from the sea, a white-walled building, perhaps the laboratory William had mentioned. That was striking. However, there was no direct path to it. The building, he was on the island, a few miles away. Well, he was already suspected this because the entire facility was underground, but the confirmation struck him differently. Where exactly was he? That was all he could think of. Shaking his head, Leon turns towards to be on his way, but just as he does, he is hit with a punch in the face, causing him to stagger backwards, grunting both from pain and surprise. But as he recovers, he looked up from his attacker. A man in his 30s, perhaps, certainly older than him. The man had short red hair, he had blue eyes and pale skin. He had a good physique, but not much different from Leon. The blond man, for his part, widened his eyes as he saw the man move forward to attack him again. "Wait!" he tried. However, the man ignored him and began to try to punch him again. This time Leon saw the attack and managed to react, ducking slightly and throwing his body to the side and stepping back a few steps after. "Listen to me. I don't want to fight," Leon tried again. But in response, the man threw a rock in his direction, and in reflex, Leon put his arm in front of his face, defending him from the rock, but leaving him invulnerable for the punch to the stomach that hit him full on. Gasping for air, the blond man bent down, grunting in pain as another punch hit him in the face, and he fell to the ground. The man then kicks Leon in the face and tries to grab the pouch he had. However, as soon as the man put his hand on the pouch, the blonde reacted by turning his body to the side, punching the red-haired man in the face, causing the man to take a few steps away, giving Leon the time to get up off the ground. The man moves forward again, giving Leon no time to fully recover, and tries to straight up punch to the blonde's face. The ex-cop dodges, but the man is fast and attacks before Leon can counterattack. Taking a few more steps away, Leon waits for the full next attack, and as the red-haired man tries to hit him, he sidesteps, lands a punch to the man's nose, followed by another punch to the side of the face, and with a kick to the chest. The man recovers quickly, wipes the blood and begins to drain from his nose, and moves on towards Leon again. The blond man tries to side punch, but the man blocks and counters with a straight punch to Leon's face. And immediately after, the man hits a side punch, followed by another punch to the chest and a kick to the ribs. Still holding on to Leon, the man pulls him forward and begins to strangle the blond man, who is trying to free himself as best he can, but to no avail. The more Leon struggled, the tighter the man seems to squeeze, until the blond man began to despair as he ran out of air. His blue eyes, in agony, ran across the red-head man's expression. There was no fear, no doubt, nothing. Maybe a little pity, as if the man didn't really want to do that. Fuck that. Raising his arms, Leon begins to strike him almost on top of the man's elbow, causing the grip on his neck to falter. Only for a few moments, but enough for Leon to straighten his posture and throw himself backwards, moving a few steps away. The man grunted at the blows that hit him, but soon reacted. Leon was quicker, however, and landed a kick to the man's stomach, who had bent over and gasped as he felt the air ran out of him. Quickly, the blonde hit another punch to the man's closer face, who turned and knelt down after being hit. However, he soon reacted, and he soon turned around again at great speed, and he threw dirt in Leon's eyes, who had moved closer to land another blow. Leon grunted loudly as he felt the dirt hit his face, and then grunted again as he was hit once more with a punch. The man grabbed him by the neck, but this time Leon did not allow himself to be strangled. As the two began to power struggle, neither letting the other take the advantage, they struggled with some force as they did so. Up until one point, Leon hits the man in the face with his elbow and kicks him in the chest, causing the man to move a few steps away. What neither of them expected, however, was the man would go straight over the edge of the hill. Both men's eyes widened and both men tried to balance themselves, but his body fell towards the puddle of water below. Leon tried to help, jumping forward towards the red-haired man with one arm and raised him to catch. However, it was too late, and the man fell down the hill. The sound of the man's body crashing into the shallow water echoed throughout the place. Leon looked down with the evident concern. No matter what this situation, he didn't want to kill anybody. He didn't even want to kill the police chief Irons, even though he had shot him in the knee and left him for dead. He would, if he could go differently, he would. But before anyone could do anything, he heard footsteps just behind him. He turned suddenly. Another man was running towards him. This time was different from the other. He had long black hair tied up. He looked young with a small beard and a few skin shades of darker than Leon's. The blond man stared at him. The blond man's eyes widened as he tried to react, managed to grab the man's arm. His frightened eyes stared at them like the knife in hand. The man reacted quickly. However, seeing that he couldn't stab Leon, he pushed him and fell down the hill. Leon grabbed him for balance, but he tripped over a small rock that he hadn't seen there, and soon they both found themselves falling down the hill. At least he didn't fall from up there alone. Leon couldn't help but scream as he felt his body free fall. His wide eyes focused on the top of the hill that was receding faster and faster as his body approached the shallow water. Soon he closed his eyes and braced himself for the impact, which was not that long in coming. The pain was not immediate, but first he felt the noise of the fall, deafening and even desperate for a few moments. Then he felt the icy water covering him. It seemed as if he had fallen on top of something. The corners of his vision went dark, and felt his consciousness leave him for a few moments, and then came out the pain in his back. The shallow water helped him to absorb the damage from the fall, but not enough, and Leon found himself struggling to breathe. Trying to ignore this spreading pain, he lifted his body out of the water and took a deep breath. However, he was soon taken by surprise again when he felt a kick in his face, sending him back underwater. The blond man disappeared again, and this time he felt one of his own hand grabbed his arm, and another squeeze from his neck, and then weight on top of his body, keeping him underwater. The huge puddle was halfway up the grown man's calf, but lying down, it was still impossible to make someone drown. Leon tried to free himself from the man's grip, but it didn't seem to be all in vain. His strength was dawning away as he ran out of air again. His vision darkened once more, and he felt his body growing weaker. In an instant he thought he would die. Leon wasn't a violent person. He never had been. However, desperation hit him in a similar way when he hit Raccoon. A burst of adrenaline coursed through his veins. He had considerable advantage. He was no longer dealing with the indestructible monsters. He was no longer dealing with tyrants or lickers. He was now dealing with the human, with the same weakness that he had. With his free hand, Leon scanned the man's face, who was trying to burn his face away from the blonde's fingers. However, the blonde did not let him get away, and quickly stabbed one of his fingers, one into the man's eyes, who in turn cried out in pain and backed away in reflex. Leon rose from the water and took another deep breath, coughing a few times as he breathed, feeling his strength slowly returning. Once he had recovered enough, he stood up and stared breathlessly at the man in front of him. Blood was dripping from his pierced eye, and he looked at Leon with irritation. The man said something in Spanish, but Leon didn't respond. He just stared with a certain coldness as the knife the man had in hand. A combat knife, although wet now, was still dirty and wet with dirt, which means two things. Either the man had very dirty clothes, or the knife was buried in dirt or thrown in the forest, which made sense. Slowly, Leon raised his arms, still panting, but this time not because of nearly drowning. "Please, enough of that. I'll give you the vial," Leon said, lowering one of his hands to his pouch. However, the man seemed to not care much. The man said something in Spanish again, but Leon didn't understand much. He had only studied the basics of Spanish, and now he regretted it. The man tossed the knife from one hand to the other, as if playing with the blade, and began to circle Leon slowly. The man shook his head again, almost begging him to stop. He had seen too many people die already, and already he wanted to see more bodies of now, even though he knew they would encounter much things worse in the future. The man advanced again, and Leon reacted. He had tried not to kill the man. That was his goal. Knocked him out, simple, without the risk of either of them dying. Easier said than done. The man tied up a horizontal strike to Leon's stomach, and Leon dodged it, taking a step back. The man reacted and stepped forward again, attacking. This time the vertical cut was bottom up. Leon dodged again, but the man was faster and struck almost immediately after. In reflex, the blond man put up his arm in front of his face and grunted loudly in pain as he felt his forearm being cut. Blood dripped down, and red mixed in with dissipated slightly from the water at his feet. It wasn't a very deep cut, but it was wide. It would certainly leave a scar. He could care less about any new wound any longer, and as for the man, soon attacked him again. The man, who took a wide step forward, tried to pierce Leon's neck. It was all too fast. The man certainly had experience with a knife. Leon now managed to dodge it. He had held back a groan of pain as he felt the darker side of his neck being sliced by the blade. Again, it wasn't a deep cut, thank goodness, and it didn't hit any important parts. But like his forearm, it would certainly leave a scar. Leon ducked at the next attack, decided to act, and as soon as he dodged, he had landed a punch in the man's stomach, causing him to buckle and grunt in pain. However, to Leon's surprise, the man recovered faster than he expected and raised his arm upwards with the intention of before stabbing him in the back. The man blonde threw himself harder than he wanted, ended up losing his balance. The man realized this and reacted quickly. "Crap!" Leon gasped and gritted his teeth. His eyes widened and his heart raced as soon as he realized he might not be able to dodge the blow completely. And he couldn't help but grunt as he felt the blade pierce the side of his abdomen. His voice failed, his eyes focused on nothing, and then his mind stopped processing everything, but the pain that grew stronger with despair. He was stabbed, his body became hot, and the place where the knife had been stuck seemed to be on fire. It was similar to feeling that when that liquor scarred his chest with his claws. Not as bad, but the thought of death was also present. Leon, in reflex, gripped the man's forearm tightly, preventing him from removing the knife, and after a few moments, the blonde had finally locked into the man's eyes. Nothing. No fear, no guilt, none of it. Just conviction that the man had focused on killing him. And for a few moments, Leon had imagined the look of monstrous eyes of the creatures in Raccoon. If the lickers had eyes, their gaze would probably be something like that. Who knows, maybe a look of hunger, anger, but they had something in common. They wanted to kill him. Honestly, Leon didn't quite know how to feel. On one hand, he would be used to it by now and everything, but on the other hand, a living person trying to kill him was different. And that was when the recognition hit him. His job would literally be in fighting indestructible monsters and terrorists. People had created those monsters. People wanted possession of the power of what it was obvious in the future. He would have to deal with people too. Deep down he always knew. He refused to accept it. But he couldn't prolong any longer. That would be his life now. Either he would adapt or he would die. A bitter taste mingled with the metallic in his mouth. He reacted, setting aside the rules of morality and the new normal world installed them in. It was a matter of survival. The rules were outside the world didn't work there. Quickly, Leon landed and headbutted the man, causing him to take a step back. Focused, the blonde man pulled his knife out from his abdomen and in one swift motion kicked the man in the stomach, raised his hand, and stabbed the man in the neck. It was all too fast. Just seconds. Everything had gone numb. The noise muffled. Leon's eyes met the man's, wide-eyed, desperate, agonized, and just he watched the red liquid down his attacker's neck. The blonde man said nothing and he didn't move. He just followed the knife and embedded down his flesh that descended as the man lost his strength until he fell to the ground and remained there motionless, his head submerged. He had taken a life. He had killed someone. He had felt bad, but at the same time, this bad feeling was numb. For a few moments he stood still, confused, not knowing exactly how to proceed, until he blinked a few times. It was him or me, he whispered to himself. It was still comfort than actually fact. It was him or me, he said again, this time a little louder, shaking his head, as if he could actually take his own word for it. Yes, it was him or you. A deep, tired voice with a bit of accent and in pain left present in his side. Leon was on the spur of the moment, raised his knife and stood at the attacking position, more to defend himself from whoever was planned to attack. He had blinked a few times and saw the red-haired man standing there, panting with his blood-stained face, looking at him with ingenuine eyes. I don't want to fight, Leon said shakily, trying not to pay attention to the red dripping down his head. The man said, spitting out some blood, I know we both don't have a choice. I know it, you know it, so do the other participants, the man said, straightening his posture and putting his hand in his pockets. Leon lowered his gaze for a moment, agreeing with the man deep down, even though he didn't like it. If you don't like it, why did you accept the offer? The man asked, circling Leon slowly. The blonde had followed him, neither of them looking away. I had no choice, the blonde man replied, swallowing dryly. The man stopped. Leon followed him. The redhead then smiled in nonchalance, shaking his head as if he couldn't believe it. What situation, huh? I have some broken ribs from the fall. And you're stabbed. He circled Leon again, who did the same. I'd admit you fight well, by the looks of it. Cop, right? In experience, you have some things that you need to improve on. He stopped again, staring at him. I have nothing against you, but I'm sorry. I'm not going to die in this forest, the man said, getting into attack position, much to Leon's dismay. Hey, look, if I can't fail here. And I said I had no choice, and if I fail, some people important to me will die. I won't let you take the vial and get me kicked out of this test. But I don't want to kill you, Leon said, almost as if the man, for his part, stared at him, unblinking for a few moments. To Leon's surprise, the man smiled, almost as if the blonde's line had been funny. What? Kicked out? Is that what you think will happen if you fail here? The man scoffed, shaking his head as he laughed. Leon clenched his eyebrows, putting his head to the side. What do you mean? For God's sake, put your head in thinking. You won't be kicked out if you fail. You know too much. This organization is secret, hidden even from your own government. No chance that they will let a person knows what just walk around freely, the man said, slowly to Leon's widened realization. Wait, they will kill anyone who fails? He asked, more to himself than the man, hoping that for some reason the redhead would say that he wanted to hear. Of course they will. I think it's pretty obvious, the man said, raising an arm to drink from the herbal mixture. Leon blinked a few times. William didn't warn me about that. He had no idea that he would have to kill all the other participants, if indirectly, to pass that test. But If that was the case, then... The blond man took a deep breath. The world around him seemed to go in slow motion, and the noise around him became muffled. His heartbeat felt like drums in his ear. His two sapphires watched him as the man pulled a small vial from one of his pockets. Leon recognized that flask. It wasn't like the one after. No, it was a mixture of herbs, and that man was about to drink it. The blond man reacted. He was so far away he attacked the only way he could think of. With a small part of his movements tingled with desperation, he threw the knife at the man, hitting him in the shoulder, causing him to drop the glass vial. The man grunted in pain as he felt the knife pierce his flesh, giving Leon the perfect opportunity to act. The surge of adrenaline coursed through his veins and ran towards the red-haired man, who soon focused his eyes on the blonde. The man tried to react, but Leon was quicker and hit him with a punch in the face, making the redhead stagger a few steps and struggle not to fall. The pain in Leon's abdomen became more intense from the sudden movements, but he felt himself to ignore it, despite his body getting slower and weaker. The man recovered and kicked the side of Leon's leg, making him fall to the ground and being unable to react to the punch to the face, which again knocked him down. The blond man managed to get his arms off the ground, avoiding being submerged. However, he could do nothing to defend himself from the kick he received, and ended up failing again with his torso up, trying to keep his head out of the water. He opened his eyes and soon felt short of breath, as he soon saw that the man had removed his knife from his shoulder and was preparing to kill Leon. A piercing attack from the bottom, strong and fast, and the blonde all it could do was grab both the man's forearms. The force was great, and Leon could feel the icy tip of the blade rubbing his chest, causing shivers to run through his body. He had grunted as he tried to fight the man, trying to push the blade up as hard as he could. No chance he would overcome that man in strength. Not in that position, not in that situation. But he could use the man's strength against himself. That was exactly what Leon did. It was risky. It was all for nothing. Releasing one of the man's forearms, Leon quickly placed the hand on the tip of the knife handle. Feeling a bit of the blade coming closer to his chest, quickly pushed it forward, stabbing the man in the stomach. The redhead like Leon gasped as he felt his flesh being pierced, but unlike before, Leon drew the blade again and stabbed him once more, this time just below the chest, making sure that he would be the one to get out of here alive. The man had staggered back a few steps, incourageous, and both he and Leon watched as the blood drain and drip into the water, staining the place red. Leon closed his eyes tightly, feeling guilty. If there was any other situation, he would do it. Turn around, he crawls over to the herbal mixture, picks up the vial and quickly drinks it. The faster he will recover, the better. Gasping slightly, Leon allows himself to sit in the water for a while, feeling the mixture act on his insides and the water refreshing his body, even if it were stained with blood. In front of him, he reached a redhead was still staggering until he fell out of the water, his back to the ground, coughing up blood and his body trembling. Leon watched him, thinking about the other words he had said earlier. He had said nothing to that guy either, much less he had the one killed earlier, and he didn't even know him. Killing him made him feel even more guilty. He held his back from vomiting, and he couldn't waste the herbal mixture. Damn it, even though his body was still healing at this very point, he felt terrible. He felt like the worst man in the world. A scumbag. Leon removed his gray shirt and tied it up tightly around his abdomen, trying to stop the bleeding. He was tired, hungry, confused, disoriented, and nauseous. Leon forced himself to get up. With staggering but hasty steps, he approached the red-haired man, who was still in agony on the floor. The redhead did not look at him, but knew that he had approached. Looking at the man in that pitiful situation, Leon felt a lump in his throat. I had a daughter, he began to say, his voice embittered by his blood, or was it tears? Leon didn't know. He just kept silent. Umbrella took her as a lab rat. She was sick and... He shook his head and closed his eyes, gritting his teeth. Leon felt even worse. That's why I accepted. Her name is Lisa. He could not finish his speech as his eyes became empty. His breathing ceased and his chest became still. Leon felt a tear run down the side of his expressionless face. He couldn't know how to describe how horrible. He had no idea if it was a good thing that he was in the man's last moments. He felt as if a great burden had placed on his shoulders, and when he had heard the man's last breath had been his daughter's name.